So welcome. First, we will hear from experts on Social Security policy about solutions that have been proposed in Washington. So these are things that Washington are talking about, and we would like to get some further information about those subjects and your reaction. Each of our three guests will start with about 5 minutes to summarize their points of view about these solutions that are now on the table. So I want to introduce them to you. Virginia Reno from the National Academy of Social Insurance on the far end. Welcome, Virginia. Romina Baccia from the Heritage Foundation. Welcome. And John Hista from AARP. John, welcome. David Holthaus, the editor page for the Cincinnati Enquirer, will be asking some questions and moderating this panel discussion about the possible solutions that are being proposed to strengthen Social Security for today's seniors and future generation. I think they're talking about us.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate your attendance and your interest. We're here to talk about Social Security. It's a foundational program in our country. It was started in 1935 under the FDR administration and is really considered the first major piece of the social safety net in the U.S. But it's in trouble. The last trustees report came out earlier this year, said that Social Security's trust fund has 20 years left to live. So that means this great program could be insolvent by the age of 98. So we're here tonight to talk about solutions, and we've got a panel of experts to do that. I'm going to give each of them up to 5 minutes to make some opening remarks, and then we'll get into some questions and give you a chance at the end to weigh in on what you think about the proposals. But I think John Hista is ready to start us off from AARP.
Thank you, David. And I first of all want to thank David and Julie from the Enquirer for being gracious enough to partner with us on this event tonight. Second of all, I want to thank you for coming out and spending an hour and a half having a conversation and listening to some of the solutions about Social Security. And I also want to thank Virginia and Romina for taking the time to come here and be with us tonight, and hopefully we'll have a fun dialogue and hear from both sides of the aisle in terms of the solutions that in many cases are being discussed in Washington and in some other places around the country. While our leaders in Washington seem to be bickering with one another right now about the budget debate and the debt ceiling and the CR, we at AARP over the past year and a half have attempted to develop a campaign called You've Earned a Say, where we've actually gone around the country and hosted events like this so that we can give you all an opportunity to learn a little bit more about where Social Security is, what are some of the possible solutions, and also get your input on what you think about those solutions, both the good and the bad, for not just you who may be receiving benefits today, but also for future generations as well. It's important for us to start this dialogue now because, as David mentioned, the program stops paying full benefits in the year 2033. And as I like to say, wouldn't it be nice to spur our elected officials on to have a debate and a conversation with the tone a little bit less heated than it is today and not in a crisis mode, where we can come together and actually figure out what the next steps are to preserve and strengthen Social Security for the long run. This is a foundational program, as he said. It is part of our makeup at this point in the game. You all depend on it. A lot of you in the audience do. Future generations should depend on it. Anybody who is younger should know that you should work to strengthen it to keep it around for your generation as well. We do a disservice to some of the folks who are here who are in college who already pay payroll taxes into the Social Security Trust Fund, not to deal with it now and not to fix it now. So my message is simple. The more these conversations we can have, and the more we can spur our elected officials on to come together and have a conversation about Social Security now, the easier it'll be for us to fix it for the long run, so that we're not sitting in 3032, sitting around saying to ourselves, oh my gosh, we have 1 year left to fix this program. Let's do it now and try to change the culture of not just Washington, D.C., but the political debate as well. So you're going to hear from both Virginia and Romina tonight on these solutions, both the left and the right, as I said. Take advantage of their expertise, listen to the conversation, and see what you think. And at the end of the day, you get to vote with those little machines that are in your hands, and we'll know where everybody, what everybody feels about some of these solutions. Finally, it's important for me to state that from AARP's perspective, this conversation should be separate from any budget debate that is going on right now. Because for too long, people talk about Social Security within the context of the budget, and sometimes, particularly our members of Congress and people in Washington, forget about the real impact that their decisions have on individual people on a daily and weekly and yearly basis. And that's what we want to try to bring into the conversation as well. What this program means to you as an individual, or your kids or your grandkids, and what those changes may mean for you or your kids or your grandkids as we move down the line. I heard the other day, in Ohio alone, fully 25% of the Social Security recipients in the state get over 90% of their income from Social Security. So until we generate a better economy where we can create additional savings, Social Security needs to be strengthened and preserved for not just your generation, but future generations as well. So thank you very much for the time tonight. I thank you. I encourage you to get involved. If you have an opportunity, go to our website, earntosay.org, and check it out. We'll have all the solutions there listed with possible opinions from both sides of the aisle. You can also play around with a Social Security tool to figure out how you would fill in the gap, the funding gap. So please do that, and if you have any questions after the program, we'll be around, AARP staff will be around, and we can steer you in the right direction, hopefully. So we look forward to a lively conversation tonight, and hope that this is the first of many in the Cincinnati area. So thank you for your time, and thank you very much for being here. Turn it back over to David.
Okay. Thank you, John. Let's turn to Romina Baccia. Romina is the Grover M. Herman Fellow in Federal Budgetary Affairs at the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. Romina?
Thank you, Dave. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this very warm welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. When President Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act into law in 1935, he explained at that time, and I quote here, that this law would give some measure of protection against poverty in old age. Today's program is very different from that. Social Security provides very important income support to many Americans, but benefits are too low for several populations, including many women and especially low-income workers. They find that despite being fully eligible for Social Security benefits, they often are still dependent on welfare support as well. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, the program taxes all workers, including low-income workers, at 12.4% of their earned income, and a portion of those benefits goes to more than 47,000 millionaires. That seems unfair and against the original intent of the law. So there's clearly room for improvement on who should receive benefits and how high those benefits should be. But there are other issues as well. Because American birth rates have fallen since the baby boom generation, Today, there are fewer than 3 workers supporting every one Social Security beneficiary. 10,000 baby boomers retire every single day, but by comparison, the economy added only about 3,500 workers a day last year. So within less than 1 generation, there will be 2 workers who will pay the benefits for every one Social Security beneficiary. And the recipients are living longer and drawing from the program longer. Payroll tax revenue today alone, they're not enough to make all Social Security payments. Last year, Social Security ran a $55 billion cash flow deficit. This was the 3rd year in a row, and the payroll deficits are projected to double by 2020. Now, the cash to actually make the Social Security payments to cover this deficit come from additional taxes or borrowing. Social Security's trust fund is credited with $2.7 trillion in special treasury bonds. And Social Security has a legitimate claim on U.S. government resources the same way that foreign and domestic creditors have a claim on the U.S. taxpayer. But if you are concerned about our massive national debt today at nearly $17 trillion, and about what that means for your children, for your grandchildren, and for yourself, I encourage you to also consider what role Social Security plays in making this problem worse. Inadvertently so, I would like to tell you that Congress was responsible with all the extra money they collected from workers over past decades, but that would be a lie. Congress spent all the money, every single penny of it, and they left a big bill for younger generations and future generations, and that's another reason why we're here today. Social Security's total unfunded obligation tops $12 trillion. Now, the law governing Social Security says that in 2033, if Congress doesn't make any other changes to the program, everyone's benefits would be cut by 23%. That will be devastating, especially for low-income workers. So many reformers seek to address this problem and also trying to make Social Security solvent over the 75-year period, which is the period that the trustees consider. And then it seems very easy to do the math. Just raise taxes, eliminate the payroll tax cap, or lift the cap. But as you consider these proposals, please remember that they will create additional money for Congress today, which Congress will spend in the same way it spent the surpluses in previous years, and it will not make Social Security much better off, especially not in the long run. These proposals only delay the problem, they don't fix it. I would also encourage you to think about the workers and about the businesses who would be hit with higher taxes, while their Social Security benefits wouldn't be that much more secure. Instead, consider asking yourself, how can we keep the promise that Roosevelt made to protect us against poverty and old age? How can we take care of those most vulnerable among us while protecting younger and working age generations from large tax increases in the future and a massive national debt that sucks economic opportunity out of the economy? These decisions to increase the retirement age, to adopt a more accurate measure of inflation, and to focus benefits, and this is crucial, on those who need them the most, they are not easy decisions to make, but they're very important. Thank you for being part of the solution.
Thank you, Romina. Now let's hear from Virginia Reno. Virginia is Vice President for Income Security at the National Academy of Social Insurance in Washington, D.C. Virginia.
It is true that Social Security is the bedrock of economic security for American seniors and for working Americans through its life insurance and disability protection. It's not just a program to prevent poverty, although it does lift 21 million Americans out of poverty. It is also the bedrock of security for the large middle class. I think as John mentioned, for 2 out of 3 beneficiaries over 65, Social Security is more than half their income. He was talking about Ohio. This is for the nation as a whole. For 1 in 3, it's almost all their income. It's 90% or more. So it was never designed by FDR to be a program just for the poor. It's for everyone, and that's why everyone pays in out of their payroll taxes, matched by their employers. That's so that people are earning these benefits. It is not a poverty program. It is an earned pension for old age for all Americans, and it does help the lower income Americans by paying somewhat more, but it's a program for everyone. They're earned benefits. Secondly, Social Security is affordable. The most experts, when they say, well, what can we afford for X, Y, Z? When you see how important it is to seniors and to working families, we have to think seriously about saying we can't afford it. So you look at the price tag, and the price tag, taking a long view, what share is it of the total economy? Well, it's about 5% now. It's true, it will go up a bit when the baby boomers are completely retired. It'll gradually rise to about 6%, and then it'll stay there for the rest of the next 75 years. It's financed largely on a pay-as-you-go basis. That means that the current taxes we all pay for the current beneficiaries, by and large. It's also built up a fund that is built up, and if we don't act to strengthen its finances, that fund will gradually be drawn down. Then all we would have left to pay for it is the taxes everybody is still paying in for their earned benefits. So it's quite affordable. The problem is that we haven't scheduled the revenues to match the benefit commitments that are in the law. In the past, Congress did that. They would look forward at the forecast and say, well, how much is it going to cost to have the benefits we want? And they would set a schedule of tax rates very gradually and very thoughtfully to pay for that. Now, if they thought, well, we can't afford that, they would phase in gradual reductions in benefits. But the truth of the matter is, Congress has not scheduled any tax increase for Social Security since I last did that in 1977, and that increase last took effect in 1990. Since then, they did act to raise the retirement age, which is a way of shaving benefits, and that was a big hit for retirees. They also enacted another provision that makes Social Security benefits of upper-income retirees subject to income taxes, and required that money goes back to Social Security to pay future benefits. So they do have higher-income beneficiaries paying back, in a way, through the income taxes on their benefits back to Social Security. So the Congress did act on shaving the benefits. They haven't yet acted on raising revenues. Now, in terms of policy options, our organization within the past year hired a firm with another organization to do a public opinion study of how would average Americans choose to fix Social Security for the long term. And it was a complex trade-off analysis, and when it was said and done, out of 12 different policy options, something like the exercise AARP has doing with You Ver to Say, but this was at a poll. When it was all said and done, the favored package of the people who took the study, had 4 parts. It had 2 revenue increases, one that would affect everybody a little bit, another that would affect higher paid workers more, and it had 2 benefit increases, one that would help all beneficiaries a little bit, and one that would help lower paid beneficiaries in retirement a bit more. So these 4 parts. This package was more than enough to solve the long-term financing problem, and it had no benefit cuts. So while the common conversation about Social Security is which benefit cut should we choose, in fact, there are other choices. We can choose to pay for it. Congress has chosen to pay for it in the past, and that has been popular. And our study found that when people were asked about willingness to pay for Social Security, if necessary, to preserve it for future generations, large majorities of Republicans, Democrats, and independents said, I agree. That's our story.
You know, 6 weeks ago, somebody asked me what the plan was in Congress, and I said, they don't have a plan, because they don't even talk to one another. They don't know how to get together and have a discussion like this. And I applaud Virginia and Romina for coming here tonight and having this type of discussion and offering their viewpoints. So get out there, talk to your neighbors, get on earntosay.org, download the solutions from both sides of the aisle and hand them out to your friends and family. And start this conversation and say, we got to deal with this now so that by 2033, we're not sitting there going, oh my God, we got to fix this tomorrow. So.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank our panel again for sharing your expertise. Go ahead, Virginia.
Yes. One additional comment, and Rowena should get equal time, but we did bring some handouts. I mean, on our website, www.nasi.org, is the survey that we did, as well as some videos that explain Social Security, just the facts, and the results of all of our research. So feel free to go there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you, the audience, for your attention and your interest tonight.